What happens when one of Hollywood's most intense actors comes face to face with a morning show host who thinks he can push him around? You're about to see one of the most heated exchanges ever broadcast live. And trust me, once this escalates, you won't believe how far it goes. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment with your thoughts on what Tom Hardy does here, because this moment is absolutely unforgettable. So, here we are. Tom Hardy is sitting across from George Stephanopoulos on Good Morning America. From the very beginning, you can sense the tension in the room. Hardy is there to promote his latest film, but Stephanopoulos clearly has something else in mind. Hardy is dressed in his usual simple style, wearing a plain black jacket, but the look in his eyes says it all. He's not in the mood for small talk or games. Tom, thanks for joining us this morning. George begins with that polished TV smile plastered across his face. Your new film is getting incredible reviews, but I would like to start with something else first. Hardy shifts slightly in his chair, his jaw tightening just a little. Sure, George, what's on your mind? Well, George continues, leaning forward. There's been some controversy about your comments on method acting and mental health. Some critics are saying you have been irresponsible in how you approach your craft. The camera zooms in on Hardy's face. His expression changes immediately. His eyes narrow, and you can almost see him thinking through what just happened. This wasn't meant to be an ambush, yet that's exactly what it feels like. Irresponsible, Hardy repeats. His voice is calm, but sharp. Anyone familiar with his style would recognize that edge. That's an interesting choice of words, George. Care to explain? George leans forward again, confident. He's steering the conversation. Several mental health advocates have criticized your recent interviews where you talked about diving into dark psychological spaces for your roles. They say you're glamorizing dangerous behavior. Do you think they have a point? Hardy's Birmingham accent grows slightly stronger as his tone tightens. And you agree with them? He asks. I'm the one asking the questions here, Tom. George replies firmly. What do you say to parents who are worried that young actors might copy your methods? There is a pause. The studio goes completely quiet, as if everyone knows something explosive is about to happen. Hardy stares at Stephanopoulos for a few seconds that feel like forever on live television. Parents should be concerned, Hardy finally says, but not about me. They should be concerned about morning show hosts who don't bother to do their research before ambushing their guests with secondhand gossip. George's smile falters for the first time. Tom, I don't think that's fair. We're just trying to have an honest conversation. Honest? Hardy lets out a short laugh, one that doesn't touch his eyes. George, mate, if you wanted an honest conversation, you would have told my publicist beforehand. You would have done your homework instead of reading talking points off a teleprompter, but that's not what's happening here, is it? George tries to stay composed. I think our viewers deserve to hear your response to these listener. I think our viewers deserve to hear response. I think our viewers deserve to hear us. Repeat it again. Cut. Repeat it again. George tries to stay composed. I think our viewers deserve to hear your response to these legitimate concerns. Hardy's tone sharpens. Your viewers deserve better than this. They deserve more than tabloid-style garbage being passed off as journalism. Tension is thick now. Hardy leans in slightly, his voice steady but carrying weight. Tell me, George, when was the last time you actually researched method acting? When was the last time you spoke to a mental health professional about how exploring deep emotions can be therapeutic in a controlled professional environment? George shifts in his chair but doesn't back down. Tom, I think you're being defensive here. Defensive? Hardy repeats disbelief, clear in his voice. George, I came here at 5 a.m. to talk about a film I cared deeply about. Instead, you have turned this into a gotcha moment using quotes completely out of context. That's not being defensive. That's called having standards. George presses on, but Hardy isn't letting him slide. Well, the quotes speak for themselves, George insists. Do they? Hardy shoots back. Because I would love to hear which specific quotes you're talking about. Can you repeat them for me, word for word? The silence in the studio feels endless. George glances at his notes, then back at Hardy. Well, there have been several interviews where you discussed your intense preparation methods. George finally mutters. Several interviews? Hardy repeats, slowly, staring him down. But you can't point to a single one, can you? You can't name the publication, the journalist, or even the exact words I supposedly used. Isn't that right? George tries to regain control. Tom, I think we are getting off track here. No, George. I think we are finally on track. You have accused me of being irresponsible, of influencing young actors in dangerous ways. Yet you can't even cite what I said. That's not journalism, mate. That's character assassination built on hearsay. The camera catches George looking rattled. His polished TV composure is starting to crack. I have the information here in my notes, George argues. Then read it, Hardy challenges. Read the exact code that has you so worried about me. George fumbles with his papers, his hands visibly shaky, sweat gathers on his forehead. The specific code isn't as important as the overall pattern of statements, he stammers. The specific code isn't important, Hardy repeats, his voice rising slightly for the first time. George, you have just spent 5 minutes questioning my professional integrity based on something you claim I said. Now you are telling me the actual words don't matter? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Hardy presses, his eyes locked on George. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you brought me on under false pretenses, just so you could ambush me with accusations you can't even properly explain. The studio crew looks uneasy. Camera operators glance at each other, unsure whether to cut or keep rolling. George clears his throat and tries to change direction. Tom, let's talk about your new film, the character you play. But Hardy cuts him off. No, George, we are not done here. You just attacked my professional methods with research you clearly haven't. Starting again from then what are you saying? Then what are you saying? Hardy presses, his eyes locked on George. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you brought me on under false pretenses, just so you could ambush me with accusations you can't even properly explain. The studio crew looks uneasy. Camera operators glance at each other, unsure whether to cut or keep rolling. George clears his throat and tries to change direction. Tom, let's talk about your new film, the character you play. But Hardy cuts him off. No, George, we are not done here. You just attacked my professional methods with research you clearly haven't done. You owe your viewers an explanation. I think we should move on, George insists. I think you should answer the question, Hardy counters, leaning in. You mentioned mental health, advocates who are supposedly concerned about me. Fine. Name one. Just one person who has criticized my approach. George shifts in his chair, visibly uncomfortable. Tom, there have been several articles. Several articles? Hardy interrupts, repeating George's words slowly. But no names, no direct quotes, no actual evidence. Do you realize you're doing exactly what you accuse me of? You're spreading vague, unverified claims and presenting them as fact. That's not the same thing, George fires back. Isn't it? Hardy presses harder. You have just told millions of viewers that advocates believe I'm irresponsible and that parents should be worried about my influence. Yet you can't show a single shred of proof, not one. The camera zooms in on George, his face tense and unsettled. We have producers who research these topics, he finally says. Your producers, Hardy replies, his voice calm but laced with pity. Now let me ask you, George, how long have you been in journalism? That's not relevant. Oh, I think it's very relevant, because what you are doing here isn't journalism, it's gossip, it's lazy reporting, and it makes real journalists look bad. George's face grows red. Tom, I don't appreciate your tone. And I don't appreciate being ambushed on live television being accurate. And I don't appreciate being ambushed on live television with accusations you can't even back up. Hardy fires back. You invited me here to discuss my work. Instead, you chose to attack my integrity. That's not hosting, it's entrapment. The studio audience is frozen, staring silently. You can sense the crew wondering if they should cut to commercial as the tension continues. George tries to hold his ground. Tom, I think you're overreacting. Overreacting. Hardy's voice drops lower, which somehow makes it even sharper. George, you have accused me of harming young actors. You have implied I'm irresponsible about mental health. You have suggested I'm a bad influence without presenting a single piece of evidence. Tell me, how exactly should I react to that? These are important questions about celebrity responsibility. George replies nervously. Based on what? Hardy cuts in. Show me the study. Show me the expert. Show me anything other than your producer's vague interpretations of something I might have said. George looks down at his notes again, stalling. The concerns have been raised in various media outlets. Various media outlets, Hardy repeats slowly, shaking his head. George, do you even hear yourself? That's politician talk. Various sources say. It's meaningless. It's how people sound when they have got nothing real to say. I'm not making anything up. George snaps. Then prove it, right here, right now. Give me one specific example. The silence stretches painfully long. George shuffles his papers, looks at the cameras, then back at Hardy. Tom, I think we are spending too much time on this. No, Hardy says firmly. We are spending exactly the right amount of time. You made serious accusations against my professional character, and now you're dodging. That's not how this works. I'm not dodging anything. Then stop deflecting. Hardy shoots back. One name, one coat, one piece of evidence. George's forehead is visibly damp with sweat. Our research team compiled information from multiple sources. Compiled information? Hardy echoes. That's not an answer. That's corporate jargon. You're hiding behind your team the same way you're hiding behind anonymous critics. I'm not hiding. Then take responsibility, Hardy says sharply. Either admit you do not have specifics or show them. Stop trying to have it both ways. George looks off camera, desperate for rescue. Tom, I think our viewers would prefer to hear about your new film. No, George. Your viewers deserve better. They deserve journalists who come prepared, not hosts who spring gossip disguised as serious questions. They deserve facts, not vague accusations. You're being very aggressive, George insists. I'm being precise, Hardy counters. You came at me with claims you can't prove, and now you're upset I'm asking for accountability. That's not aggression, it's professionalism. Audience is locked in, equal parts fascinated and uncomfortable. No one dares to move. Tom, let's try to have a productive conversation. George pleads. Hardy shakes his head. We could have had one if you would stuck to real questions about my work. But you chose cheap controversy, and now you're trying to run away from it. George tries one more angle. Surely you can admit celebrities have irresponsibility when speaking about sensitive issues. Of course, Hardy replies. Celebrities have irresponsibility, just like journalists do. Hosts have a responsibility to research properly. Networks have a responsibility to maintain integrity. But what you're doing here doesn't meet that standard. We maintain very high standards. George insists weakly. Do you? Hardy asks, leaning in. Because what I see is you making claims you can't support, dodging accountability and calling that journalism. If that's your standard, then we have got a real problem. George looks broken, his composure slipping away. Tom, you're being incredibly difficult. Difficult? Hardy laughs bitterly. You ambushed me with false accusations, and I am difficult. Because I asked for facts. What did you expect would happen? I expected professionalism, George says stiffly. Then you should have acted professionally. Hardy fires back. You should have done your homework. Instead, you chose tabloid tricks. George looks toward the crew, his face desperate. Tom, I think we need to wrap this up. Oh, now you want to wrap it up? After you have spent 10 minutes tearing into my reputation with nothing to back it up? Hardy shakes his head. We had limited time. You wasted it. The studio is dead silent. The tension unbearable. Crew members are frozen, unsure what to do. Tom, I'm asking you one more time to tone it down. George says quietly. Tone it down. Tone it down. Hardy repeats. His voice steady but cutting. George, you accused me of being dangerous and irresponsible. And now you want me to be polite about it? That's insulting. I just want a civil conversation. Civil. Hardy laughs coldly. There's nothing civil about blindsiding a guest with unverified claims. That's not civility, it's deception. George wipes his forehead, his mask of control completely gone. Tom, that's not what this is about. Then what is it? Then what is it about? Explain it. Explain why you invited me under false pretenses. Explain why you think repeating gossip is journalism. We are trying to ask important questions about influence, George says weakly. No, Hardy replies firmly. You are trying to create drama for ratings, and when challenged, you hide behind empty words like important questions. The camera zooms in. George looks defeated. Hardy leans forward. Tell me, George, do you have children? That's not relevant. I think it is, Hardy presses. If your children were watching, what lesson are you teaching them? That it's okay to make accusations without evidence? That ambushing people is journalism? That when you're caught, you can just say tone it down and move on? George looks off camera, pleading with his producers. Tom, I think we should take a break. A break? Hardy rises slightly in his chair. You don't get to take a break from accountability. You made accusations, now you want to run. Security. George finally calls out. Security. Hardy repeats, his voice filled with disbelief. You're calling security on me for asking you to back up your own words? Unreal. Guards begin moving toward the set. Hardy stays calm, shaking his head in amazement. This is what journalism has become, folks. He says, now speaking directly into the camera. When they're called out for shoddy reporting, they call security instead of admitting their mistakes. Tom, you need to calm down. One guard says. Calm down. Hardy replies. Still composed. I'm sitting here, speaking clearly, asking for basic standards. What exactly am I supposed to calm down from? Remove him from the set, George orders. On what grounds? Hardy asks, standing slowly. For expecting you to do your job? For demanding accountability? He looks straight into the camera one last time. Remember this moment, folks. This is what happens when you ask for accountability in modern media. And with that, Tom Hardy walks off on his own terms. George is left sitting, stunned, shuffling his notes with trembling hands. The audience is in complete silence. Then the show abruptly cuts to an unplanned commercial break. Television history already made.